Well, the month of September is set aside as National Suicide Prevention Month. And joining us today, Jennifer Truman, a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner at Lima Memorial Health System, to talk more about this important topic. So thanks for joining us, Jennifer.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so how can we help and support our loved ones?
Okay, so first thing is communication, right? We want to make sure that we're a safe space to come to and don't have a lot of strong opinions about suicide in front of people that maybe need to talk. And if we have a story, it would be great if we could share those stories with our loved ones, if we can just normalize hard conversations.
Mm-hmm. Is that kind of the message you want to get out about Suicide Prevention Month, you know, the goal and the health and well-being for people, that it's possible?
Yeah, so Suicide Prevention Month has a few different goals. One of them is to just take a moment and remember those who have passed away from suicide. And another one is raising community awareness, for sure, and which is what we're doing here today. And then we want to make sure that we encourage hope and we strengthen prevention methods in the community.
Are there people that are more at risk maybe for suicide? And how do we know that?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question. So suicide doesn't discriminate, so it can hit anyone, anywhere, anytime. But the main risk groups are ages 10 to 19. And that's sort of because those are the ages where the prefrontal cortex, the reasoning part of your brain, isn't really developed yet, but you're also pretty big risk takers. So people who commit suicide usually are pretty ambivalent about whether they live or die, but then in a moment of crisis, they just react. And that's how we need to teach, especially that age group, social skills, like how to be resilient, how to cope, how to apply self-care. And if we can kind of be really vulnerable during this, just vulnerable in life in general, then they don't feel so alone in those situations. Another risk group, though, I want to mention is middle-aged men, and that's simply because they have more means to tools that are risky for that crisis moment.
So if you're someone who's struggling right now and you're watching, or you know a loved one who's struggling and maybe have suicidal thoughts, what kind of things can you do?
So I always tell my patients, first thing I want you to do is reach out to somebody in your support system. But unfortunately, not everybody has somebody in a support system. So I also encourage that we use the Hope Line. The Hope Line is a free confidential line that you can call and they just talk to you about how you're feeling. Another way is to call the new 988 number, which is a substitute for 911 for mental health. And that's because their goal is not to rush somebody to you. Their goal is to talk to you and find out what the next steps and how they can help. And it's really exciting, too, that Rhodes State College is opening the Justin Boris Center for Behavioral Services, because it just means in our community we're going to have more resources available and more people that you can reach out to when you're feeling that way.
Right, yeah, and reaching out and resources. So there's treatments available. I mean, that's the good part, right, for those people who are at risk. So come to you, reach out, right, and you can get things worked out.
Definitely. If you start noticing, you're just down more than normal, or there's some thoughts kind of ruminating in your head, that's when to seek help before the crisis hits. And there are a lot of different ways that we can help with medication, with psychotherapy, and we just want to be available to help people through tough moments.
Right, yeah. Well, Jennifer, thanks for joining us today. You can make an appointment. There's a phone number on the screen, and that can help with the next chapter and maybe preventing suicide, the mental health department. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for getting the word out. I appreciate it.
All right, don't go away. First Edition continues in a moment.